A 17-year-old kid standing at a crossroads between his dreams and the brutal reality of failure, with an entire town watching him fall. But what he discovered in that moment of pain would change everything, not just for him, but for anyone who's ever felt the weight of other people's judgment crushing their spirit. By the end of this story, you'll understand the one skill that separates those who make it from those who don't, and trust me, it's not what you think. In a small farming town in rural Nebraska, the kind of place where everybody knows your name and your business, there lived a kid named Ryan Mitchell. Now Ryan wasn't your typical high school senior. While most kids his age were posting on social media and hanging out at the mall, Ryan was living a completely different life. He'd wake up at 4:30 every single morning, before the sun even thought about rising, and head straight to his family's farm. His father had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving Ryan and his mom to keep everything running. So there he was, a 17-year-old kid driving tractors, fixing irrigation systems, hauling hay bales that weighed almost as much as he did, working until his shirt was soaked through with sweat and his hands were raw and blistered. Only after putting in a solid 6 hours of manual labor would he finally head home, take a quick shower, grab whatever leftover breakfast his mom had saved for him, and squeeze in maybe an hour of studying before catching the school bus. Ryan loved learning. He was that kid who actually enjoyed chemistry and calculus, who read books for fun, who asked questions that made teachers smile. Everyone in town, and I mean everyone, had already decided that Ryan Mitchell was going to be valedictorian. They talked about it at the diner, at church, at the hardware store. That Mitchell kid, he's going places. Smartest boy this town's ever seen. Harvard material, for sure. The pressure was real, but Ryan tried to live up to it. He really did. Then senior year finals rolled around. Ryan was running on empty, juggling the P classes, farm work that never stopped, and the constant worry about whether they'd have enough money to keep the lights on. He studied late into the night under the dim glow of his desk lamp, fighting to keep his eyes open, reviewing notes while his muscles ached from the day's work. When exam week finally came, he gave it everything he had left. But sometimes everything isn't enough. The day results were posted online. Ryan sat in the school library, his hands shaking as he logged into the student portal. He scrolled down past the A's, past the B's, and then he saw it. A P physics, grade F failed. He'd failed. Ryan Mitchell, the kid everyone bet on, had crashed and burned. It felt like someone had punched a hole straight through his chest. But here's the thing, the failure itself wasn't even the worst part. What came next was so much harder to handle. Within 24 hours, the whole town knew. In a place that small, bad news travels faster than wildfire. Suddenly, everywhere Ryan went, he felt eyes on him. Walking down Main Street to grab groceries for his mom, he'd hear whispers from the hardware store porch. There goes Ryan Mitchell. Can you believe he failed? And he thought he was so smart. All that studying for nothing. Guess farm work is all he's good for. At the diner where he sometimes grabbed a coffee before school, the usual friendly faces turned into smirks and side eyes. Even at church on Sunday, he could feel the judgment radiating from the pews behind him. The comments came from everywhere, constant, cutting, relentless. Some people said it to his face with fake concern. "Oh Ryan, we heard about your grades. That must be so embarrassing for you." Others just laughed behind his back, loud enough for him to hear. "The golden boy isn't so golden anymore." Every single word felt like a knife. Ryan kept his head down, kept quiet. But inside he was falling apart. The confidence he'd built over years of hard work was crumbling. He started doubting everything. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not smart. Maybe I've been fooling myself this whole time. One evening after a particularly brutal day, Ryan couldn't take it anymore. He drove his pickup truck out to the edge of town where his old mentor lived, a man named Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison had been Ryan's 8th grade science teacher, the one who first made Ryan love learning, who saw potential in him when Ryan was just an awkward middle schooler covered in dirt from the farm. Now retired, Mr. Harrison spent his days reading, gardening, and occasionally offering wisdom to former students who needed it. Ryan knocked on the screen door, and when Mr. Harrison opened it, the old man took one look at Ryan's face and knew, "Come on in, son." They sat on the back porch, looking out at the sunset, painting the Nebraska sky in shades of orange and pink. Ryan's voice cracked as he spoke. "Mr. Harrison, I can't do this anymore. Every day I walk through town and people mock me. They laugh at me. They whisper about how I failed. I worked so hard, and it still wasn't enough. And now everyone thinks I'm a joke. I don't know how to make it stop." The old teacher sat quietly for a moment, then turned to Ryan with calm, steady eyes. "Ryan, I want you to do something for me tomorrow morning. It's going to sound strange, but I need you to trust me on this." "What is it?" Ryan asked, wiping his eyes quickly. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. "I want you to take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it completely to the brim with water, and I want you to walk from your house all the way down Main Street to the post office. But here's the catch. You cannot, absolutely cannot, spill a single drop. Not one." Ryan blinked, confused. "A bucket of water? That's it?" "That's it," Mr. Harrison confirmed. "But remember, not even one drop can spill. You'll understand why when you do it." Ryan had no idea what this crazy old man was getting at, but he respected Mr. Harrison more than almost anyone, so he agreed. "All right, I'll do it." The next morning, just as the sun started creeping over the horizon, Ryan grabbed an old metal bucket from the barn, filled it right to the top with cold well water, and headed out. The bucket was heavy, awkward, and every tiny movement made the water slosh dangerously close to the edge. He gripped the handle with both hands, his muscles already tense, and started the walk toward Main Street. Every step had to be calculated, slow, deliberate. If he moved too fast, water would spill. If he didn't watch his footing on the uneven sidewalk, water would spill. His entire focus narrowed down to one single thing: keeping that water steady. As he walked down Main Street, something predictable happened. People noticed him. Old Mrs. Patterson, sitting on her porch, called out something. A group of guys from school drove by in a truck, and he heard laughter. Someone from the barber shop said something loud enough to carry across the street. But here's what was different. Ryan didn't hear any of it. Not really. His eyes were locked on that bucket. His mind was completely consumed with balance, with steadiness, with making sure not a single drop escaped. The voices around him became background noise, like static on a radio station you're not tuned into. People's faces blurred. Their words lost meaning. All that existed in Ryan's world was the water in that bucket and the sidewalk beneath his feet. His breathing slowed. His heartbeat steadied. Everything else, all the judgment, all the mockery, all the whispers, just faded into nothing. He walked the entire length of Main Street, past the diner, past the hardware store, past the bank, past every single place where people had mocked him. And he didn't hear a word. When he finally reached the post office, he looked down. The bucket was still full. Not one drop had fallen. He turned around and walked straight back to Mr. Harrison's house, still carrying the bucket, still focused. When he knocked on the door again, the old teacher smiled like he'd been waiting. "Well," Mr. Harrison asked, "how did it go?" Ryan set the bucket down carefully. "Mr. Harrison, that was the strangest thing. I was so focused on not spilling the water that I didn't hear anything anyone said. I didn't even really see them. It was like they weren't even there." The old man's smile widened, and he put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "That, son, is exactly the lesson. When you focus deeply, truly deeply, on what matters to you, on your goal, on your purpose, on your work, other people's words lose their power. Their noise becomes meaningless. You walked right past the same people who've been tearing you down, and they couldn't touch you. Not because they stopped talking, but because you stopped listening. You stopped giving their opinions space in your mind. Ryan felt something shift inside him, like a lock clicking open. It all made sense. He'd been carrying the weight of everyone's judgment because he'd been paying attention to it, giving it value, letting it into his head. But when his mind was completely occupied with something that mattered, there was no room left for their negativity. Mr. Harrison continued, "Ryan, you're going to face criticism and doubt and mockery for the rest of your life. That's just how the world works. People talk, but you get to choose what you tune into. When you carry your bucket, your dream, your goal, with steady hands and a focused mind, everything else becomes background noise. That's the secret that successful people understand. It's not that they don't have haters. It's that they're too focused to notice." From that day forward, everything changed for Ryan. He stopped checking to see if people were watching him. He stopped replaying cruel comments in his head at night. He stopped letting the town's opinion define his worth. Instead, he poured everything into what he could control. He retook that physics class in summer school and aced it. He kept working the farm every morning, but now with a sense of peace instead of resentment. He studied with a focus he'd never had before, not because he wanted to prove the town wrong, but because learning mattered to him. The whispers didn't stop right away. People still talked, but Ryan didn't hear them anymore, not in the way that hurt. He'd learned to carry his bucket. Slowly but surely, his confidence came back, stronger than before, because now it wasn't built on other people's approval. It was built on his own focus, his own discipline, his own vision for his life. The town didn't change, but Ryan did, and that made all the difference. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Ryan stood on the porch of his family's farmhouse watching the sun rise over the fields. He realized something profound. When you focus on your goal with everything you've got, all the negativity, all the doubt, all the criticism, it becomes blurred. It's about protecting your peace, your confidence, your mental space from people who don't matter. If you're doubting yourself because someone laughed at your failure, your goal, your dream, your purpose, it's in your hands right now. And you have a choice. Take a deep breath, hold your bucket steady, keep your eyes on what matters, and let everything else blur into the background where it belongs. That's how you win. Not by silencing the critics, but by becoming so focused they can't reach you anymore.